Almost perfect. Okay, great. Okay, good afternoon, evening, everyone. Welcome. We're meeting quickly today to kickstart our first online with everyone. It should be everyone, but we're recording the session, and so it will be sent to those of you who were not able to make it. At this point in time, we are going to go through the questions, look at a few examples, look at the mark scheme, try to familiarize ourselves with the process of marking online. And if you have any other technical responses, questions, I know that James had been answering a few of you earlier, then please call, email, use the WhatsApp group, and we will proceed accordingly. So as I said before, welcome to the 2017 CSEC Theatre Arts Marking session. For those of you who this is your first time, extra welcome. All right. So a couple of things. You are able to send messages on the RM Assessor. So any messages that you need, Carlina, yes, I will take the numbers at the end of this session, and I will add everyone who is not in the group to the group. So you are also able to send messages, and you should always check for your messages because there are some messages not only from myself but also from admin. I see something about, I see a note here. Is everyone hearing me? Okay, great, thank you. All right, so here are some general tips. Firstly, ensure that you have your username and password for the RM Assessor. If you have any questions, do check in. So you can email me, you can WhatsApp the group. Always check your mark scheme and the guidelines at all times. Now, and I'm serious when I say you have to have patience of Mother Teresa, because it's software related, there may be some issues, especially with the internet, if your internet is not powerful enough or it's somewhat slow, but just hold faith, it will go through. All right. We've found that for a lot of persons in the past, it's been very helpful to work out your strategy. So usually the morning is the best time because you can get it done and the rest of the day doesn't come bulldozing down on you, right? You have to be able to set apart a few hours of blocked time so that once you get your rhythm going, you're in the zone and it's working well for you. You should have a target number of scripts per question. So we'll discuss the number of scripts and the questions that you've been assigned to and how many scripts you're required to mark. All right? So thank you. When you work out your strategy, the number of scripts that you have to mark per question has to become a part of that strategy. And when you first start marking, you'll be able to look at your pace and rhythm. Please do not try your very best not to rush through the questions in an effort to get as many done as possible. It is better you take your time, particularly with the first few, and once you get your rhythm going, you'll see that you move quickly naturally because you're in a great marking zone setup. don't. It's extremely important that you do not share your login or password with anyone. As we know, we're not to share or discuss scripts in an unsecured space. If you're in doubt, do not mark or send in the marks. And I'll explain a little bit about that in more detail further down. And once you're having challenges, please do communicate with either myself or James Young, and we will assist you as best as possible in a timely fashion. We said this and I cannot repeat it anymore, but very important, always refer to your mark scheme. Always underline where your mark is being given and use annotation tools to make notes on what the mark is being given for. Yes? Some answers continue onto another page, so always scroll down or go to the next page to ensure you do not miss a point. Some candidates tend to say the same thing in different ways, so you have to be careful to watch out for either extension of points or repetition of responses. Yes? So the points must be awarded for distinct answers. When in doubt, go to your mark scheme. If still in doubt, send a message to the group or set up a meeting. Take your time, mark carefully. So this is where I want to expand on why that is so important. Apart from obviously wanting to give the candidate their due grade, the mechanism that's set up, some of you, especially newer persons to the system, may be wondering how is it that we're able to mark online and guarantee a level of quality assurance. And, you know, obviously this would have been easier face-to-face, but there are systems that have been put in place to ensure that there is a high level of quality of marking. We have what we call seeds, and seeds have been put into testing to test your ability in marking. Yes, they're introduced periodically throughout the marking. You will not know if it is a seed item. Now, the seed has been marked prior. It's gone through the rigors of questioning. And so there's a tolerance level. If your marks deviate very far from those that have been awarded for the seed, then you will be pulled from marking. Yes, there was a process that you could have been standardized again, but once you're pulled, we've been told that that is it. So please, please, please do not mark in doubt. Ask your questions. Go back to the mark scheme. Go back to this presentation, and we have the WhatsApp group. So yes, check and recheck your marks. Ensure they add up correctly. All right. Any questions so far before we move into talking about the questions? All right. Okay, moving on. So there are 6 questions as per usual, and the first question, let me give you a look at the question here. Let me know if I have to zoom. All right. So the question 1, define any 5 of the following terms as used in theater arts. So
not seeing the question, Karen. Not seeing the question.
Okay, I guess my screen. No, it's actually saying that it's being shared. Are you seeing it now?
Okay, I'm seeing it now.
I'm seeing it now.
Okay, great. Is that everybody? Everybody seeing the screen now?
Yes, I'm seeing it.
Oh dear, which means that you weren't seeing my PowerPoint, but that's okay. I will send it to the group. All right. So you are required to define any 5 of the following terms as used in theater arts. Yes? So there are a number of choices. They're only required to do 5. If they do more than 5, then you choose the best 5 responses. Okay? So let's look at how the marks are awarded. There's 2 marks each, which add up to the 10 marks allocated for question 1. Yes? You award 1 mark for simple response. You award 2 marks for response with detail, example, illustration. Clarence, is that Clarence? Clarence, can you mute your mic, please?
Hello?
Clarence, can you mute your mic, please? Thank you. Okay, so you award 1 mark for simple response, 2 marks for response with detail, example, or illustration, right? All right. Okay. A few things to look out for. For the responses for ensemble, that should refer to a group or group activity. Shouldn't be group activity. Look back at your mark scheme when you're marking that response. The cool down, the process or activity or exercises should be after a production. After a warm-up is also acceptable. Again, look to the mark scheme. Masking. In addition to the mention of stage positioning and the movement of actors, masking can also refer to the use of flats and legs to prevent the audience from seeing entrances and exits of performers to the backstage, and also set or prop. All right, that is also noted in the mark scheme. So these are 3 areas that you have to look out for. Yes, but it's not a particularly tricky question, so you should be fine with that. All right. So let me go back to, I'm going to go back to the question so that you can, if there are any of those items, the mark scheme actually, did I open it? The mark scheme actually has a definition for each of these. So if you're not familiar with all the responses, no worries, the mark scheme defines them. All right? Just remember, it's 1 mark for simple responses, 2 marks for responses that also have details, illustration, examples, etc. Yes? All right. Any questions from question 1? Okay. Question 2. Third. All right. Question 2, cultural forms. You must use the Caribbean cultural forms specified in the syllabus to answer A and B. A, name 1 cultural form which contributes to tourism, education, and the arts in a named Caribbean territory. So, main thing that you're looking out for this question is that the cultural form must be on the syllabus. One of the things that we did that we did for the mark scheme for this question is that we ensured that we listed, just to make it easier, is that we listed the cultural forms right at the top of the mark scheme. The mark scheme is actually already embedded in the system on the RM assessor. So once you go to grade, it will be there for you to peruse, use, and work with. So those are the 10 forms that are relevant for the 2015 to 2017 examination. Any response that you do not see listed items 1 to 10 would be awarded 0 marks. One of the things that we wanted to discuss with this question as well is that you notice that it said in a named Caribbean territory. The great majority of the candidates did not name the territory. So for example, it didn't say Mashromani, Guyana. However, we are not penalizing them for not naming the territory. That's clearly articulated in the mark scheme as well. However, please note, if the candidate names the cultural form but names the territory incorrectly, then they're given 0. So for example, if they said Mashromani, Jamaica, that would be 0. All right? It's clearly stated in the mark scheme as well, which is why I keep reinforcing, check your mark scheme while you're marking, stay close to it. Yes? Right. So let's go back to the question. One cultural form which contributes to tourism, education, arts in named Caribbean territory. Discuss contribution of the cultural form identified in A that it makes to each of the following. So we have 3 that we're going to go through: tourism, education, and the arts. So let me quickly refer to here. And then what we're going to do is pause here and we're going to look at a few responses. So for part A, which is pretty straightforward, naming of the correct cultural form. For part B, 1, 2, and 3, this is where it's a little bit tricky, but very clear if you keep connected with your mark scheme. The responses must connect the form and the area to be discussed. For example, it must link tourism to the form mentioned in part A. Please note, if they name a cultural form that is not on the syllabus, you know, they would get 0 for the first part. However, we ask that you grade part B given the answers are correct generally. So we're not penalizing them for part B, even though they've named the cultural form incorrect in part A. Hope that is extremely clear. It's also listed on the mark scheme. So let's look at some sample responses for 1 mark. Tourism. Tourists come from all over the Caribbean for Mashromani. So there we would see that it distinctly lists Mashromani to tourism because the tourists come to the Caribbean to with a sea view experience Mashromani. To get an additional mark, then this candidate takes it a bit further. So there's even more application. Mashromani is good for Guyana because when the tourists come, they see the beauty of our festival, and this encourages even more tourists to visit Guyana. For another level and awarded the full 3 marks, there's even greater application and connection. So you see that the candidate is now talking about the fact that the tourists will come during the independence period, which is when Mashromani exists, And that again is good for Guyana because the tourists will come, they will see the beauty of the festival, and there will be a lot of great things happening during that time frame in Guyana. Yes? A response such as tourists come because they want to have fun, although that may be true, that wouldn't be given a mark here because there is no connection made at all to the form and why it is, how it contributes to tourism. Oh, let me go back. All right, at this point in time, I'm going to try and come out and give you an actual example of the question. Hopefully I haven't been kicked out because I've been away for so long. All right, this is actually question 1. So we'll go look at probably 2 question 1s and a question 2. All right, so this candidate responded to encore, masking, strike, ensemble. Yes? Encore. This is normally a word said by the audience to mean do the piece again or they want to see more. So let me look at our mark scheme so that you can have a comparison. But in the meantime, please think about how much you would award that response. Oh my gosh. All right, thank you. Let's see. Here's our mark scheme. Remember, it's 1 mark for simple response, 2 marks for response with detail, example, or illustration. Yes? So in our mark scheme, we have a definition for encore. All of these are 2 mark examples, of course. So a simple response for encore would be, sometimes an audience, so it would be the first half, they may enjoy show or production so much that the performer may repeat a song or dance. Yes? Or you may say someone may shout encore, and as a result, the performers may perform an additional part of the play. So this is normally a word said by the audience to mean do the piece again or they want to see more. How many marks would you award that response? Is everyone hearing? Okay, so okay, Naomi, I see a response. Mm-hmm. Mm. Was that all responses in? Okay, this is a 1 mark response. It's a simple state, right? Exactly. When you read the mark scheme, it's a 1 mark response. Yes, Carlina. Because it's a simple response. It's a word said by the audience to mean do the piece again or they want to see more. For an extended response, so a detail and illustration. So please don't forget that part of it. It says 2 marks with detail, example, or illustration. So the The cast, the performer may repeat a song or dance in the show after the audience has asked for the encore. Yes? So go back to the mark scheme. Okay. What about masking? Score for masking? All right. Looks like everybody's pretty much agreed that that's 0. Okay. Agreed. Strike. You guys are cracking me up. Yes, yes. So we're pretty much agreed that it's 0. All right, ensemble. Right. So the great majority, you are correct. It is a 2. Exactly. Because they said they gave us simple statements. So it's when more than one person performs as a group, mostly with music. But they then go on to even give an illustration. They play in sync, spelled incorrectly, however, we know what they mean, or in harmony to entertain the audience. So yes, this happens with dancers and singers too. So yes, it's a 2 mark response. So the response for cool down, we read it and we know that based on the mark scheme and the use of the term in theater arts, right, that response would not be awarded a mark at all. Yes? Okay. Let's look at one more and then we're going to go to a question 2. All right. Encore. This is when an audience beckons for the performers on stage to present their performance again. Marks awarded. Great, yes. It's a 1 mark response. Masking. Masking is when the director or choreographer of a performance marks the stage using pieces of tape for where the performance should go. This is also used to mark places for stagehands to place props and equipment before and during the production. Marks. Right, we're all agreed, no marks allocated. Okay, let's move to this response for cool down. This is an exercise normally led by the director. Okay, yes, Naomi is making a comment that masking, blocking, there have been issues in the past when students have confused that. This response actually about the masking you as using pieces of tape to show where the performance should go. It's actually quite a few responses we see coming up with that. So it's something that we have to make mention of for teachers to reinforce the distinction for candidates, because it's quite a few responses that we've seen that coming up with. All right. Cool down. This is an exercise normally led by the director before and after a production. This exercise is done before to help calm nerves and is sometimes done after so the performers may rest and cool off. Example, dancers. All right, Nicole, but how much would you give it? All right, so tell me why you would give it 1 mark. And anybody can just offer an explanation for the response. Why 1 mark? And why no mark from some people?
Yeah, well, I just sent my humble opinion according to facts and practice, because you warm up before and you cool long after. You can't cool long before.
Right.
I agree, prior. Cool down is after. Warm up is before, definitely. So that has to be a 1.
For sure.
You can't cool down before a performance.
Yeah, because like
0. I would say 0 because the child is confused. The child doesn't know the difference between warm up and cool down. So I wouldn't give that a mark.
All right. But hear what now?
Yeah. Sorry.
Right. So Nicole is right. There are parts of it that are correct. And so the decision is, but I need you to be very careful with this, right? You have to look at a response and be able to analyze it for what it is and not apply a blanket brush to what I'm going to say here. Now, okay, exactly. So the candidate has some knowledge here that it happens after a production. You're correct that the before is incorrect, but it says after a production. And when they talk about before to help calm the nerves, okay, we're not looking at that part. It says done after so the performers may rest and cool off. Example, dancers. So it gives some illustration and example after, and there's a point before. Now, where, no, but here's what. So Carolina, the child isn't necessarily confused, you know. You have some people who warm up before the show, and when they warm up before the show, anybody who does a warm up, there's a cool down section in that warm up. So when this child is talking about the cool down before the production, it is from the sense of after they have done their warm up, they do a little cool down after the warm up. And at the end of the production now, they finish the production, they rest, and they cool off. So there is a sense of how they use the term. So if you look at, wait, sorry, I just moved off, so I didn't see your, sir, I didn't see your response, Neela. I was moving to the mark scheme. All right, if we look back at the mark scheme, right? That's not it, it's this one. Okay, so it's done by the performers after either a show or dance presentation or physical activity. It helps the muscles to relax and helps to reduce the possibility of injury. So this child here has given a response for the after the production, and the fact that it allows you to rest and cool off after the production, particularly for the dancers. Yes? So we have to, that's why I say take your time to be careful and analyze, because we would award the marks for those areas, even though they said before, because there are persons who do warm-up activities before a show and they're told, okay, you cool down as a part of that warm-up part as well. And
Yeah,
nothing
also,
that you see.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead,
sorry.
Prior.
No, I agree fully, because it's not like the one before with masking. That child clearly explained spiking the stage. They're not even close. They're not even close to say, well, they confuse masking with, well, not even, well, people who not in theater, they say, well, yeah, that person blocked on stage. But we in theater know it as masking, right? But like this, that explanation was so off and wrong, but there's cool down here. The child has an understanding is this, the before children, the before obviously caused them to lose lose two versus one. So
But it wouldn't necessarily cause them to lose two, you know, because you're not deducting marks for
oh sorry, well, awarded one, I should say.
awarding marks, right, for knowledge
Yeah,
areas.
awarded one.
They have the knowledge in there being represented. So I just want you guys to be on the lookout for examples such as that.
So, Karen, let me just ask you, so you will award what for cool down?
Cool for this one.
Okay.
Because they gave the statement and then they gave an illustration, an example.
Yes, I just wanted to re-emphasize that we do not deduct marks. We actually would award marks for what is said, even though other things there may throw it off a bit. Once the core information is there, then the student is awarded. So kind of read that, forget the before, and read everything else, and is the information there?
Yes. I know, very interesting, Nicole. And so that's why we pulled one of these so that you can have a look at it. And cool down is actually one, is a popular choice to for the candidates, and it's actually showing up to be one of those tricky questions. So be careful with it. Yes? All right. I'm gonna, so question, even if they have something wrong in question, but they have the right thing, you award the mark for the part that you are, yes, awarding the mark. So you would have underlined here after production. So this is an exercise normally, well, it doesn't have to be led, but it's a normally led after production. Then you would have underlined this exercise is done to help performers rest and cool off, for example, the dancers. Yes? For an exemplar response, then they would have said to prevent injuries, but they still did give an illustration and some level of detail. All right, I'm going to come out and we can look at a question 2, and then I'm going to move on to question 3. Sorry guys, sometimes it takes a little while to refresh. So question 2. All right. Let's do that. No. All right. Okay, so we're here at question 2. You must use the Caribbean cultural form specified in the syllabus to answer A and B. Name one cultural form which contributes to tourism, education, and the arts in a named Caribbean territory. Masquerade. One cultural form is masquerade. Marks allocated for this response? Right. Okay, good. Agreed. All right. So we gave it the 1 mark. Discuss the contribution that the cultural form identified in A makes to each of the following. Tourism. Masquerade increases tourism in countries because it attracts overseas people to come to the country that is involved in this cultural form so that they can become a part of the experience. Let us quickly look at our marks scheme, and we're going to come back and look at the question, the response, sorry. It said 1 mark for simple statement about the element, 2 additional marks for application. And you see that there, in order to get the full 3, it has to be different levels of application, right? So those were some of the examples. And let us look back to this question. So first things first, once we're looking at our question 2, we're looking at linking the form to what is being asked, so whether that's tourism, education, or the arts. First thing. Second thing, you're looking at the different levels of application in order to know if you're going to award 1, 2, or 3 marks. So we're here. Masquerade increases tourism in countries because it attracts overseas people to come to the country that is involved in this form so that they can become part of the experience. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the great majority of you are correct. It is a 2-mark response. Why? Masquerade increases tourism in countries because it attracts overseas people to come to the country that is involved in the cultural form. So that in and of itself could have been a 1 mark. If you put the full stop, even by country, that would have been a 1 mark response. They kind of continue a little further because it's saying why? Because when they come, they can be a part of the experience. So it's a 2 mark. If they needed to have created another level or another point in order to get the full 3 marks. Yes? All right, let's look at part 2. Oh, they don't have to name the country, Nicole. They just have to say how it contributes to tourism. They don't have to name the country. All right. Okay, education. Masquerade educate. I'm gonna just spell check. Masquerade educates many children and also adults by educating them on how the cultural form was discovered and also the elements of it. Marks? Sure, I like that question, Naomi. Mark scheme, please. Here you go. Let me go down. So it's 1 mark for simple statements, 2 marks for application, but 2 additional marks for application, but you will see that different levels of application. All right, so on screen, the example for 1 mark, sample response for 1 mark, sample response for 2, and I'll give you a chance to read it and scroll for sample response for 3 marks. All right. Okay, so I'll go back to the question. I have 2 responses so far. What else is everybody weighing in on? Marks? Mm-hmm. Okay. So someone who said 2 marks, tell us why you think it's 2. Any persons that are stabbed for why you think it would be 2 marks? Okay, what about the person for 1 mark?
For me, it doesn't go any further than the 6th level of interpretation or analysis. It doesn't go beyond that. Yes, they say, yes, if the student says that how it was discovered and the elements taught, but they do not indicate anything that happens after that. What do the students do with it? How do the students use that information? That's for me, that's why I gave it 1.
That's actually a great answer, Naomi. In terms of, it didn't continue to say how they would have utilized the elements or how they used it in something further. So indeed, when you talk about educating them on how the cultural form was discovered, there's some mention of history and of cultural history, but the elements, that's still a part of that discussion, yes? No further application, so 1 mark, correct. So part 3, masquerade helps the arts because it helps others to identify their talents. Thoughts? again, let's have a discussion about 0 versus 1. Can I have somebody for the 0? No zeros? Okay, what about the 1s?
Well, again, for me, the more persons who understand their talents and who get an introduction to their talents, the more likely it is that the arts will grow. And so that is why I gave 1.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
Leanne has something written there.
What? So I missed it. Oh, it just said the health of a big statement.
Nicole says, state 1 benefit in a simplistic way.
Mm-hmm. All right. I actually agree with all of you. Like Carlina, I do agree that it's a vague statement. However, a lot of times you'd find that when we are, and it's not throwing away or awarding points for interpreting. Being in mass allows persons to identify if they can dancing or make costumes. Exactly. So what Nicole just put up is exactly what we read into it, is that when you participate or you're a part of masquerade, there are so many different aspects to masquerade that it helps you to actually whether work in an area, participate in an area, and to find yourself within that area and therefore work within that area, contributing to the arts even further. Now, had they written all of that, they would have gotten the 3 marks or even part of that too, but they had a very simple response that indicates that. And not all of these students are at the same level, so they, in terms of the expression, we have to be able to look for these kinds of students. Yes? Again, a good time again to reiterate the point that the broad brushing is not applicable. You have to really analyze each response for its own merit. All right? All right, let's try one more, number 2, and then we move on to question 3. Leanne, once it's plausible, the question was, Leanne's question was, how do you know what it meant or what it's supposed to mean? Once there is a plausible meaning there, then you would be able to kind of pull that out, yes? And like I said, when in doubt, you can still ask the questions. It's not because we're not sitting across from each other, then not because we're not sitting across from each other means that we can't ask for clarification. All right? So don't feel like you're alone. Ask for the clarity, and we can always discuss it. Yes?
Yes, and Karen, let me just say there's something we call benefit of the doubt. If it's almost there, we give it.
Yes. Thank you, James. All right. Okay, so again, this candidate chose masquerade. All right, let me ask you a quick question. if a candidate put carnival here, what mark would you have given them? Anybody else? I only saw, okay. 2 responses I've seen so far. Anybody else weighing in? Okay. Exactly. Where are we? Here.
Carrie, did you see my last statement?
Yep. And that's exactly what I'm going to talk about. Here, no, Carlina, I love you, but no, not in this case. Carlina said benefit of the doubt. All right. In here, it has the 10 forms to be studied for 2015 to 17. Now, carnival, some consider carnival a type of masquerade, yes? However, if you look at the syllabus, I had it up earlier. I think I may have closed it, but let me use this listing. These are all the forms that are listed on our syllabus. Do you notice that carnival here is listed as a separate form? See? Masquerade here is listed as a separate form. There's no slash or anything. So in this case, and we have our 10 forms, which carnival is not in. So if a candidate is to give, yes, crop over just actually ended up in the highlight by accident. So they should not have been highlighted. If a candidate put carnival, then they would not be awarded a mark. Yes? Okay. So that's just an example because a few carnivals came up and I had wanted to discuss that with you guys just to ensure. All right. So where are we now? Here. So their response was masquerade. All right. And the thing about it is to, in this case, is that the teachers have to be so on their teaching. They know the 10 forms. Their students should know. This is something that comes up every year. It's a question. So they should know that they have to ensure that their students distinguish the forms that are on the syllabus. All right? All right, so let's look at 2B1.
One thing, this clarification for my own understanding is crop over considered a carnival.
If crop over is what? Sorry? Consider a form by itself?
Carnival.
Well, let's put it this way. Yes, it's considered, it's a carnival in Barbados, but let's put it this way. We are going with, so that debate is not for the carnival or anything. We're going with what 10 would have been on the syllabus. And because the syllabus distinguishes between them, and you know that 10 are chosen for focus, then yeah, that's how we would have to use our yardstick. All right. Okay, 2B2? No, 2B1. Okay. How many marks would you award this? So it says masquerade contributes to tourism in many ways because individuals from all over the Caribbean would travel to a country to be a part of bands to see the different rituals and background masquerade depicts, such as stilt walker, man on stick, mokojombe, and different cultures of masquerade. So I see some tools. Any other thoughts? Nicole. All right. So it says masquerade contributes to tourism in many ways because individuals from all over the Caribbean would travel to see a country to be a part of bands, to see the different rituals, background masquerade depicts, and it gives some examples. So it's really a point plus the application of that point, rubric. All right. Going back to the mark scheme. I think one of the biggest things you're going to have to be careful of, ladies and gents, is the extension of a point and the continuation of an example. So you're going to come across the different scripts. You have some candidates, they did not even fill in the entire space allocated, but yet they're able to get the 3 marks for that question because they gave their simple statement plus levels of application, all right, and illustration, examples. So, but then you have other candidates who may fill the space plus more, but they're really extending on a point that they've made already in a way that it's not adding anything new or any new levels of application to the response. So if anything, I would say that's the thing you have to be most careful about. Yes, so I agree that this is a 2-mark response. It's a good 2-mark response, but no more than that. Okay, education. So it says masquerade contributes to education because it teaches the different rituals from different cultures. It teaches the background history and origin of masquerade, and it also teaches how to have fun and teaches one how to have fun and express themselves by portraying a character. Lastly, it can help individuals to see many costume designs and portray a career in costume design. Yes. Agreed. So we're all in agreement. Clear, exactly, Nicole. Definitely clear 3-mark response. Yes? Good job. And last, let's see the discussion on the arts. Masquerade contributes to the arts because it portrays the different features in theater arts. It also shows the rituals of our ancestors and in the elements of the arts such as dancing and playing instruments, etc. So how are we going to tackle this now? We're going to split up this response and look at it for the simple statement plus applications, yes? Simple statement about the form, obviously connecting it to the arts. Yep. All right, awesome. We're all in agreement. It's 2 marks. Okay, good job. So I'm going to round, we're going to look at question 3. I'm going to touch on just looking quickly at 3, 4, 5, and 6, but we're only going to look through some examples for question 3. We'll be just at this point to say that we'll be opening up marking tomorrow, but we're not opening all the questions all at once. So I will send you an email or WhatsApp. In fact, I'll take all your numbers before I go. I'll tell you when. And I will indicate in the WhatsApp group as soon as marking is open and which questions are opened. Yes? So in the meantime, I want you to look through what I'm going to send you here in terms of, okay, repeat. I was saying that we're going to open marking tomorrow, but we'll be opening it in phases in terms of not all questions will be opened at the same time. So I will send you a message in the WhatsApp group. If you don't have WhatsApp, that's fine. Just indicate and I will, and only this, okay. And I will send you an email with the same information. Can I send you my, sure, no problem. So I will take all the information before we leave tonight. Yes? Okay. So let's talk about this. Oh, we spoke about this. So I'm going to now go back to our PowerPoint and move to question 3. All right. Oh, wait, sorry. Let me let you have a read of the question. And question 3. So, our career question. Study the picture of a performance scene below carefully and answer the following questions. So, first thing is to suggest a suitable title or theme for the performance. And part 2, prior, are you hearing us? Part 2, state one reason for your choice. Yes, and that's just 1 mark each. We get down now into part B, which asks the candidate to describe how the title or theme suggested in A part 1 is illustrated in any 2 of the following elements. So, prior, please let me know if you can hear, because this is the part of the question that we have to be extremely careful with. Can you hear prior? All right. The session is also being recorded, so James is going to send it out to everyone as well. Now, I'm going to read over this again. Describe how the title or theme suggested in A part 1 is illustrated in any 2 of the following elements of the performance scene. That being said, there must be a relationship to the title. Yes, it must make sense. It must link to the title or the theme, right? Oh dear. Let me see if I can, let me see. Prior is not hearing me. let me say, okay, the answer for part B must be related to the title or theme in part B. All right, so just ensure that happens. Yes? Okay. All right, so let's look at our mark scheme for this question. All right. So again, if you look at our mark scheme, it says it very clearly. You award 2 marks for any of the 2 elements, so it's 2 marks each with a full description. So in order to get the 2 marks, you have to have a full description, yes? So it would talk and it must illustrate or link to the title of the theme. So I put some examples here so you could get an idea, right? So let's look at costume, for example. The title in part 1 was Caught Red-Handed. And we awarded 1 mark to say all the ladies had on a dress and the police had on, okay, I'll remove that. And the police had on their uniform and the man had on a shirt. Now, he or she, although it's not in detail, it still gives some sense of what costume the characters would wear, yes? And the caught red-handed, the fact that he or she mentions police, then we award them a mark for it, yes? Dancing feet with jealous friends. Persons dressed as different characters to carry out the role of different persons in the scene. We award them a mark. It's a simple response. But we get the fact that they understand that each person would have to be costumed differently in order to play the different friends. All right. For movement is a tricky area because while people are not describing or defining in detail movement, so saying that the persons would move in a circular motion downstage, so they're not talking about that, but they're talking through movement. So the person is in the middle lying down. It has persons laughing, so there's some level of action that's going on. So these are actual responses from candidates, so we did award them a mark. For setting, it has to give a sense of time or place. So just saying the people are in a circle would not get a mark. But if this candidate, for example, said they would set the scene in the middle of a small town with different, I didn't know if they wanted to say color or color, but color is what they had, business owners, and it would be used to illustrate different classes of people that were in the scene. Again, setting, it seems as if they were in a bar, club, the chairs in the back, because of the chairs in the background. So an example for 2 marks was this response for music or sound effects. Use suspenseful music and sound effects to hold the audience's attention. Then I would use soothing songs to complement the disbelief that was just experienced. Yes? So if you refer to the mark scheme, okay, if you refer to the mark scheme and prior, we could always go through again if you feel some level of uncertainty. We can look at that again. Yes. So the mark scheme tries to be extremely clear, and I believe that it covers a lot of different areas. When you look at part C, and we're going to look at a couple examples. When you look at part C, it talks about, let me show you the question. Making reference to technical theater and or dramatic and movement elements. Describe what is expected to happen in the next scene following the one shown in the picture on page 8. The general problem with this question is that quite a few candidates are talking about what is happening in the scene rather than the next scene. We cannot award marks for them talking about what is happening in the scene now. It has to be something that plausibly sounds like the next scene, right? We'll look at a couple examples for that, but that's the part that you have to be careful with for this question, right? The mark scheme. Which one was that? No. Yes. Right. So it says you have 1 mark for a simple statement, 2 marks for a statement which shows elaboration or illustration, 3 marks for responses such as 2 simple statements and an elaboration or illustration for one of the statements, or a simple statement and 2 elaborations or illustrations, and you get the full 4 marks for 2 distinct statements and their respective elaborations. It's very clear. So for this one, just refer to the mark scheme and use it as a scientific method. When you look at the answer, you say, okay, what is this? Is it just a simple statement? I know it's 1 mark. If it's a statement plus an elaboration, it's 2 marks. If I have 2 of those, they're going to get 2 plus 2, which is 4. If it's 2 simple statements and 1 elaboration of one of those, I know it's just 3 marks, and vice versa. Yes? So you have to use that one as a scientific model. All right, so let us take a look at a question 3. Example. Okay. All right. Okay, so we have this response. We spoke about this, dancing feet with jealous friends. Okay. I have no comments. Let's just talk about it. Because the man in the, I'm not sure what that word is, looked as if he could dance and everyone came to watch him. Oh, it looks like the man in the syllabus. I think he's talking about the picture. Looked as if he could dance and everyone came to watch him. Marks for part 1 and part 2? One each, yes. Anybody with different responses? All right, so okay. Caroline, 1 each or 1 in total? Okay. All right, so we're agreed, 1 each. It's actually difficult for the students not to really be able to get this one. But again, the response in 2 has to be plausible to the response in part 1. Okay, B? All right, so here we are, costumes. This is a vague response. I would admit that. But the candidate makes reference to the jealous friends. So if you note, they're connecting back now to the sense that they're different characters and the different roles that they have to carry out. So they would be dressed as these different characters. Yes? They could have really gone into what kind of costumes they would wear, but it says, so describe how the title suggested in A part 1 is illustrated in any 2 of the following elements of the theme. So they're really saying that the persons are dressed as different characters to carry out the roles of the different persons in the scene. And it is a true response, it's a simple response, so we would give them the 1 mark. Yes? What about this part? So it says, making reference to technical theater and or dramatic and movement elements, describe what is expected to happen in the next scene following the one shown in the picture. So please read this and tell me what you would award this candidate for this question.
So 18 people.
Thoughts? How many marks? No grades? Or did I miss it? Are we still all here? Any takers? How many marks? Okay. How many marks are you awarding this person? Question is worth 4. Would you like me to go back to the mark scheme?
Go up to the picture again, please.
All right. I'm going to go picture and then mark scheme. Oh, wait, I can do it here. Picture. So picture. And then mark scheme. And then you guys are good to go back to the question now, the response. And the response. Okay. Have a response from Nicole. Anybody else? Kyle, what are your thoughts? Anyone else? All right. What was the thing that I said? Okay, Naomi. All right. Okay. Naomi Leanne. Is he? Exactly, Neela. What was the thing that I said that you have to be careful on with this question? See, it's there in bold. Next scene. Right. Next scene. And he's talking about this present scene. So unfortunately, he or she would get no mark for this because it says next scene. So that's the thing, it's a very straightforward response, but that's the thing that you have to be careful of. So just ensure that it's the next scene. Yes? There was one script that we came across that we had to read it a few times because it was so touch and go that it could almost have sounded like this current scene or the next scene. So you have to read it a couple times and really ensure that you are really paying due diligence to the candidate. All right. Right, exactly. Next scene. All right, final look at one for question 3, just to be fair to the question 3 persons. And then I will just introduce the discussion on 4, 5, and 6, and we can wrap up. I'll take your numbers before we go, of course. Or you can send it to me by email. Okay, so part 1, the candidate the title, disbelief. Reason, people in the picture look as if they had just seen something that they cannot believe happened. Responses, awards, mark rather. Marks, 1 each. Okay. All right. 1 each. Awesome. So this candidate, all right, so it says, describe how the title or theme suggested in A1 is illustrated in any 2 of the following elements of the performance scene. So this candidate has chosen setting and music or sound effects. So they're starting off with the music or sound effects. I would use suspenseful music and sound effects to hold the audience's attention. Then I would use soothing songs to complement the disbelief that was just experienced. If we look back at our mark scheme, our mark scheme says 1 mark for simple statement, 2 marks for a statement which shows elaboration or illustration. So if we dissect this, the first point is suspenseful. Say again?
You are reading C.
Oh, I was reading C. I'm sorry about that. Yes, for B, it says award 2 marks each for any of 2 elements with full description. So the first one that we're looking at is the sound and the music or sound effects, and we're looking for if it is going to get the full 2 marks if it has a full description. Would you say it has a full description? Yes. All right. We are agreed on that one. So it's 2 marks because it has a full description. What about this response? I would set the scene in the middle of a small town with different white-collar business owners where they would reside. This would be used to illustrate the class of the people that are in the scene. How about the setting? Any other thoughts on the setting? So we awarded this 1 mark because it made mention of the small town, yes, but it didn't really go into a full description as the other one where it was directly related to the theme and what was happening there. All right, let's look at this the final section. Okay, so it says, making reference to technical theater and or dramatic and movement elements, describe what is expected to happen in the next scene following the one shown in the picture on page 8. So this candidate says the next scene would be the people around the man would try to get answers as to what just took place, but they're too afraid to go close to him because he seemed to have been possessed by something. So they take turns using different methods in order to try and solve what has just taken place. This causes them to go into a flashback of his teenage years, which would reveal the answers they are looking for. Marks allocated. Request for mark scheme coming right up. That's it there. So the candidate can make reference to action or movement, relationship building between characters, climatic moments, technical elements. Are we seeing two statements with elaborations or illustrations for both those statements? Because I've seen 4 marks, persons allocating 4 marks, and I've seen a 3-mark allocation. So the thing to look for is, are we seeing, for it to get the 4 marks, 2 reasonable statements with illustrations? So I would say there are 2. Yes. So the next scene, people around would try to get answers as to what took place, and then there is the illustration or further development. But they're too afraid because it seems that he was possessed by something. Going on to next thing, they each take turns using different methods to try and solve what just took place and how did they do this. This causes them to go into a flashback of his teenage years, which would reveal the answers they're looking for. So yes, 4 marks. Is that clear? No? Which part of it, Nicole? So it just has to be 2 separate to the elements. What elements? He's describing the next scene. Which elements do you mean? Is your mic working? You can speak.
Hold on, I'm looking at the question again. Elements. I don't know. For me, I'm just seeing a lot of plot development. I thought they were supposed to be linked. That's why I asked for the mark scheme to movements, technical theater, something. Those elements.
It also says that development of relationship to characters or events. So there's action and movement in that. There is relationship building between characters. There are climatic moments. They didn't talk a lot about technical elements, but those 3 things are represented in that response. You see, right, okay, all right, so you see. So that's why the mark scheme is your best friend, right? All right, so question 3, I believe is pretty straightforward, or after all that discussion, of course. Question 4. I'll just let you have a read of it, and question 4 really, It says you see an advertisement about an audition for dancers and actors in an upcoming production. State 2 appropriate activities you would use to prepare for the audition, 1 mark each. Identify 2 of your strengths as a performer that you would speak about in the audition, 1 mark each. Write 2 appropriate questions that you would ask the director or choreographer about the production, 1 mark each. Discuss 2 reasons why an audition is an important activity in the theater, 2 marks each for that one, and that's 10 marks. Yes? It proved to be a pretty straightforward question. So just recall the mark scheme, which guides you directly with this question. Last question. Question 4. Yes. So the mark scheme for question 4, it just gives you some further guidelines. So it said you can, for example, talk about preparing for a play. There are a myriad of possibilities to these responses. Yes, they can talk about cognitive errors, affective or psychomotor for part B. For part C, they could talk about any questions related to what the play is about, who is involved in the production, about the pay, logistics. And then for part D, when it talks about the importance of auditions, again, you just have to see if it's a simple response or it's a fulsome response. Yes, for those responses. Yes? Okay. Question 5. Oh, sorry. My bad. Question 5. Asks you, you're preparing the final production of your theater arts examination. In that production, you and your fellow students will perform different roles and activities. Choose any 4 of the following roles. For each role chosen, identify 1 activity which students will need to perform before the start of the rehearsal. That's part A. And for part B, it says, choose any 4, and for each role, identify 1 activity which students would need to perform after the production. There are 2 things I would like to call to your attention. One being that for part A, it distinctly says before the start of the rehearsal process. So that's the part you have to be careful about, yes? The before the start of the rehearsal process. And they can choose any 4. For part B, it's after. So for part B, after the production. So just make note of those 2 distinct areas. The other thing that I want to mention is if you notice, they're allowed to choose any 4. So most candidates stick to the same 4 that they chose in part A. I haven't come across any script so far that I've seen them choose different ones. But if you notice, they wouldn't be penalized for choosing 4 completely different roles. Yes? Because it didn't say as used in part A. So it can still be any 4. The last point I want to go over with mentioning that is, that's not 5 now. I can just close that. Is that for the definition, this comes up every year. The roles and responsibilities and the definitions of who is, for example, a costume designer versus a wardrobe mistress, and what are some of their duties. This also happens for the lighting designer versus a lighting operator. So those are some of the things you're going to have to be very vigilant about in terms of the actual roles and responsibilities. And again, it gives some examples of what candidates could say before and then after. Yes? For part C, for question 5, it asks, choose any one of the following roles and state 2 reasons why you would want to perform in that role. And then the responses just have to be plausible responses. Yes? So they choose the role and they state 2 reasons. 1 mark for each reason. Yes? Our mark scheme, that's... So our mark scheme, oh, that's not it either. So award 1 mark for each reason for any one of the following. If they talk about the definition of the role, the importance to the production, if it's something personal to them or in the affective realm. Yes? And last but not least, question 6. So question 6, question 6 is asking the candidate. It says some individuals on social media have suggested that the Caribbean Examination Council should no longer offer the practical component over 2 years in the CSEC Theatre Arts. Therefore, the examination would only have a written paper. Write a letter to the Caribbean Examinations Council in which you outline 5 reasons why the practical component should be continued as a part of the CSEC Theatre Arts examination. So there are 5 reasons, 2 marks each, which gives 10 for question 6. Yes? If we look at our mark scheme for question 6, it guides us in saying 1 mark for simple reason without elaboration, 2 marks each for a reason with elaboration. Yes? So it gives some sample responses for 1 mark and it gives sample responses for 2 marks. So this is pretty straightforward as well. Yes? Is that clear for everyone? Are there any questions? Okay, great. Did you all receive an email from me? Is there anyone who didn't get my email? Leanne, could you type your email address now for me in the group? Because you could all just email me your telephone number so that I can add you to the group. And if you do not have WhatsApp, all right, P-A-R-R-I-S, okay. Send me, so Leanne, you didn't get an email from me, so I will send you an email. All right, Naomi, I got that. You can send me your number and I will add you to the group, and then that's how we will keep in touch from there. James, Just confirm for me, Nicole. Yes. Javan, Nicole. And I will give you my number now as well, and you can just add me. It's 876 442 9230. And you can send me a WhatsApp message and I will add you. James, are they able to download the mark scheme once they get onto